please make sure you fill out the card, fill it out all the way, and that will grant you access to speak. So if that is what your intention is, make sure you fill out the card. Thank you very much. All right, Holly Naylor.
Here.
Thank you. Nancy Rosso.
Here.
Becky Baisley.
Here.
Don Smith.
Here.
Janine Bogliowski. Bill Boland. Here. Kim Armstrong.
Here.
All right, all present and accounted for. With Van Ness, we are now in motion. As for the approval of the agenda, I would receive a motion if one were to present. Okay.
I want to add something to
You would add something to it, okay.
After we amended the agenda, I did get a memo from the library's lawyer, but she suggested we review it in closed session. So I'd like to add it between F and G on the discussion.
Okay, so you want us to go into closed session?
You have to vote tonight, that's why we do it.
Right, wait a second.
She couldn't come tonight, so she wanted to do it. That's the only, I think that's it.
All right, then we will add that item between F and G. We will have to go into closed session. And so, I know we will go into another room. Although I think it's more fun to have them all stand up in the snow. No, we won't do that. All right, so we will add that in, and we will take care of it at that point. And now, as far as the approval of the agenda, if we have a motion. There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion apart from the one inclusion? All in favor of the approval of the agenda, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, approval of the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda. So moved, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion about the consent agenda? All right, if everyone is in agreement, please indicate by saying aye for the approval of the consent agenda.
Aye.
Motion so approved. And approval of our regular meeting minutes from 1/16/25 at 7 p.m. Motion to approve. We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Didn't we just approve that in the consent agenda?
I'm sorry. Yes, I started into something that I should have. It's already approved. Thank you very much. All right, we are now going to go into a call to public. But before we do, I do want to read a statement as the president of the board. And I just want to say, again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Bill Boland. I am the president of the Cromaine Library Board, and I want to thank every one of you for attending and for your attentiveness to what we are undertaking as a board. For those who don't know why I ran for this position, I ran to be able to have an impact on children, to protect them, and to help to keep them from harm that can befall from coercive behavior. And the approach that I am going to suggest on some of the motions that we are going to look at, some of the procedures and changes that I'm suggesting along with some colleagues, is a common sense approach to changing the tone and the nature of some of our policies and practices. Tonight, we are going to discuss several controversial items on our agenda, including the removal of June Pride displays, labeling certain books that may be controversial for various reasons, moving said books into an age-restricted area, providing supervision in the teen area to monitor behavior, and last but not least, returning the Pledge of Allegiance to our monthly meetings. To help you participate in the public discussion forum, please ensure that you complete the card that you were able to pick up, including your location, as everyone can speak, but the topics are specific to the community where this library is situated. Michigan statutory law requires a library to adhere to local community standards. You may or may not know that. In terms of Act 33 of 1978, 722.674, there's a definition for libraries, and that is in context to how we treat and act toward minors. As used in this part, harmful to minors means sexually explicit matter that meets all the following criteria. Considered as a whole, it appeals to the period interests of minors as determined by contemporary local community standards. Yes, I am making.
We've never made a statement like this, we just let the public speak.
That's,
Yeah.
we
this
may
is
not,
part of the discussion.
right, I do want to read through this.
You can,
And-
we're at that point in the
Right, I do understand.
This isn't your pulpit.
So that she doesn't have to write it down, just send it.
I will send her a copy, yes. It is patently offensive to contemporary local community standards of adults as to what is suitable for minors. Considered as a whole, it lacks serious literature, artistic, political, educational, and scientific value for minors. Local community means the county in which the matter was disseminated. Period interest means a lustful interest in sexual stimulation or gratification. In determining whether sexually explicit matter appeals to the period interest, the matter shall be judged with reference to age 17-year-old minors. If it appears from the character of the matter that it is designed to appeal to the period interest of a particular group of persons, including but not limited to homosexuals or sadomasochists, then the matter shall be judged with reference to average 17-year-old minors
Please cite your source
Within-
for what you're talking about.
Michigan law.
This is out of order.
It is out.
You can't just talk
You
right
are,
now.
he is out of
There's
order.
an agenda to follow.
This is not, you're not at a pulpit.
Which is designed to.
Sir, you are out of order. You can't just
You are
talk
out
right
of
now.
order.
There is an agenda.
And you need to listen to the community which you serve.
Oh, yeah, we are, but we can't do the call of public because he's talking right now. And he's not supposed to. There is an agenda to follow. And that matters.
Thank you. Prior to this meeting, I had a discussion with our sheriff about language that would be appropriate for placing on a label, warning adults about the danger of providing explicit material to minors and the possibility of prosecution. The language they returned reads, and this is from Carolyn Henry and Mike Murphy. The library board has determined this publication to contain possible sexual explicit material. Allowing a minor access to this book is contrary to MCL 722.674 and MCL 722.675 and may subject you to criminal prosecution. We're not recommending that that be adopted, but it is assumed that the board is sympathetic to the need to provide books that deal with changing family dynamics in a sensitive and thought-provoking way when necessary. Librarians, teachers, and certain school officials are exempted from prosecution, and law enforcement it would be virtually impossible once the books were in the privacy of a home to determine. The wording does not need to be that strong -1 provision. It is good that as a library board, we are making a sympathy statement to anyone who's been unduly influenced to undergo transition surgery and treatment only to regret the decision
Are you
they made
kidding? What?
as a and are suing
Please
those
let us
who
continue the meeting.
influenced their
Thank you.
decision. Someone needs to stand up for the children. Those who serve on the library board are going to implement policies that restrict access to certain books and place content warning labels will be able to enact policies that reflect the community in which they serve the people of Cromaine Library District, either tonight by vote or later after referral to the appropriate committee for refinement of language and crafting of policy that state intention of the people. A list of books that could be recommended for labeling is being compiled. And we will make reference to our librarian with that afterwards. And with that, my statement is over. At this time, we are going to enter into the call to public request of discussion. We have Brent Kellen. If you would like to speak, you may come and do so at this time.
There's a microphone over there.
There's a microphone right over here to the side.
Is it hot? It's hot. Thank you very much. Hi, Brent Kant, 151 East Auburn Trail, Brighton. I'd like to discuss the board's responsibility to the community, specifically representing the community as a whole and promoting a healthy community. The library's strategic plan for 2024 through 2028 cites the following vision: to be the community's essential destination for connection, enjoyment, and learning. It doesn't say half the community or any fraction of the community, it's the whole community that's implied. Each member of the board that's sitting in front here has received votes from a portion of the community that voted. No one on the board received unanimous endorsement from the community as a whole during their respective elections. So when the board assembles to have discussions regarding policy, stubbornness, preconceived notions should be cast aside in favor of having an open mind and a willingness to compromise and reaching common ground or consensus that benefits the community as a whole. I'd also then like to talk about contributing to a healthy community. It's not limited to just the board's responsibility, really, it's everyone who lives in Heartland that should participate in that. And I'll start by mentioning something that doesn't promote a healthy community, and that would be discrimination. Ask the folks in Howell how discrimination is working out for them. They had to hire a PR team and attempt to put a Band-Aid on the damage that's been done, and really the damage that's still ongoing there. When I read tonight's meeting agenda and noted a proposed discussion regarding the discontinuance of Pride Month at the library, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. Is this just a one-off discrimination being applied, or is there more to come? Meaning, are Black History Month and Women's History Month next in line? When I say that discrimination is bad, don't take my word for it. Now, I'm not a religious person, but for those that are, just a reminder that the Bible doesn't take too kindly to it either. Couple of verses, John 13, verses 34, 35. So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other, just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. And Galatians 3, verse 28. There is no longer Jew or Gentile, slave or free, male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Heartland already has one black eye with the discrimination issue being addressed by the high school currently, and I don't know if we really need to or can afford to have another black eye. And in closing, let me just say that I hope the board can do the right thing and put the whole of the community first when deciding on how to best manage the library's ongoing affairs. Failing that, you run the risk of reducing the library to a private reading room for the sole benefit of the political and ideological majority, which would be a detriment to the community, in my opinion. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to voice my opinions.
Thank you. Leah Klum.
I'm here today on behalf of several teen volunteers to discuss two items that are on the agenda for this evening. I've been volunteering here for 6 years and I have over 300 volunteer hours, so it's safe to say that the library is like my second home. It is the place where I feel most comfortable, listened to, and safe, so it is important for me to speak up about some potential changes that would affect me and other volunteers who consider the library their safe space. One of the items on the agenda is potentially labeling items with sexually explicit material. Me and many other volunteers feel that this is not a very practical idea. There is no possible way for us to accurately label every single book. There are many librarians and tons of teen volunteers, but it is impossible for us to read every book in the library. I know the next best step would be to look up reviews to see if there is sexually explicit content in books. However, these reviews are very hard to trust, because what one person might consider sexually explicit can differ from person to person, and by just looking up reviews, we might not correctly label every book. In addition, many books don't say things outright, but instead let readers infer them. Trying to label every book that might have sexually explicit content sets us up for failure because we cannot guarantee a patron won't find something in a book they consider sexually explicit, even if we have the labels. The most practical way to limit the content a child is consuming is by having the parents regulate what their child is reading. In addition to the impracticality of this labeling is a not so cleverly disguised attempt to limit LGBTQ+ media. If a patron doesn't want to read LGBTQ+ content, that is their choice, but we should not single them out with labels that could lead to bullying and harassment. Heartland is a wonderful community, but I would be lying if I said I didn't know people who would bully others for having a label like this on their books. I know the library can't control how people react about certain books and labels, but I don't want to make bullies' lives easier and isolate members of the community. Speaking of not isolating community members, the second topic I would like to discuss is the proposed discontinuing of the Pride displays. Decorating for Pride Month and putting up Pride displays has been going on here for many years. It is a day I look forward to every year because it gives a chance for historically marginalized groups to have a chance to be seen and heard. About 1/4 of all high school students are LGBTQ, but oftentimes it feels like there are none of us. This Pride display is a chance for people like me to get a voice and make sure people know they're not alone. According to the Risk Group Behavior Survey, they found that 41% of LGBTQ plus individuals have seriously considered suicide and 20% attempted it. Being one of these individuals, I cannot stress how important it is that we create displays that prevent people from feeling alone. What might seem like a silly display to one person can mean life or death to another. As a library board, we trust each of you to make decisions that accurately reflect the needs and wants of our community. This is why we implore you to continue the Pride Month displays and not label books with sexually explicit content. We want a community where What?
You have 10 seconds left.
We want a community where everyone can feel loved and welcomed. And if you go through the library with these changes, you will make the library a place where teen volunteers don't feel valued. Thank you.
You're welcome. Todd Bizette or Bizelle, I'm not sure if there is if that's a P or an L at the end.
It's P. This will be brief. I'm Todd Bissett. I didn't prepare anything, but I just want to come and make a statement that I am not in favor of removing the observations for Pride. I'm a gay married man of 25 years, and I live here in Heartland, and I believe that libraries are safe spaces. I think that children need a place to go where they feel included, and just providing a data point. I'm here in your community, and I would hope that young versions of me would feel safe going to the library. Thanks.
Jay Woodland from Denton.
Good evening. So the Cromaine Library is built by and for the taxpayers. The library staff are employed and paid by we the people of this community. I have been using the local library is intended to provide access to books and technology to the community. So I've been using the library since 2003. I felt satisfied with its offerings until a few years ago, specifically December of 2022, which isn't Pride Month, when I brought my kids into the teen room, which is situated down a hall in a back corner room on the second floor. My kids and I were met with bright rainbow streamers, decor prominently displayed throughout the room, a pronoun pin table right there. On the main bookshelves, they had a poster with the title, The Top 10 Most Challenged Books of 2021. The list goes as follows. 1, Genderqueer. 2, Lawn Boy. 3, All Boys Aren't Blue. 4, Out of Darkness. 5, The Hate You Give. 6, The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. 7, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. 8, The Bluest Eye. 9, This Book is Gay. And 10, Beyond Magenta, a Transition Tale. This poster had a description below each of those books regarding reasons they were on the 10 most challenged book list. So all of these books were being contested for explicit sexual images and or content and child sexual abuse, among other things. They all described it. Displayed prominently around this poster were copies of many of these books, these challenge books, and also other books with titles such as You Do You, Figuring Out Your Body, Dating and Sexuality, and 2, Naked, Not Your Average Sex Encyclopedia. So this is the teen center, mind you, minors, okay? Instantly I felt alarmed. Why was this whole display tucked away in the corner second story teen room? Why wasn't this displayed with all its good intentions right in front of the doors of the main library entrance where the whole community can see it? Now, I would consider myself a safe mom. I think I'm pretty safe for all the children of our community, although I would never expect anyone to take my word for it. So I'm assuming all the librarians, people who work there, who choose this content for our underage minor children, would give themselves the same title as a safe person in a safe space, right? Why is it then that I had a visceral instinct to protect my children from these adults who instantly I recognized as a threat to the health and safety of my children? The most basic of human instincts is to protect the children. I don't know what kind of mental gymnastics Cromaine Library staff has to make to push explicit sexual images and content on our community's children, but we, Heartland families, are taking a stand against this perversion, and we will not stop fighting to protect our kids, because after all, they are our kids, not yours.
Carolyn Shiner. Carolyn Shiner?
Carolyn?
Caroline, sorry.
Oh,
Caroline Schreier. I didn't quite get
Schreier,
that.
thank you.
Yep. All right. Hi, good evening. I'm here today to address a couple of the items, obviously, on the menu. On the feels like a menu today. I feel like we're in a circus, not a library meeting. Okay, so I am a Heartland alumni. My children are Heartland alumni and Heartland students, and I'm here today with just a few key points that I wanted to address. First of all, the speaker just before me ended by saying they are our children, not yours. And I want to emphasize that. You ran, along with several of you on the board, next to signs that said power to the parents, not power to the church, not power to the library, power to the parents. As a parent, I am perfectly capable of deciding what books are appropriate for my children. I don't need you to decide that for me. I appreciate a library that has a wide selection of books that I can choose from, so I know what is appropriate for my children. I do not need the library or your church to decide that for me. Secondly, speaking of your church, you are a pastor. You are a pastor making decisions for a church when you're in that role. When you are in this role, you are the head of a library that serves an entire community. You read a definition of sexual explicit content with no context. We don't know where it came from. Who is going to make the definition as to what sexually explicit content is? Are you going to use a federal definition, perhaps the one provided by your church, or the one you just read, which we don't have any idea where it came from? And then finally, it's important to emphasize that when we did look at the study done by the library about what our community needed, no one in that context said that what we needed was a whole new stickering system for the library, and that's what was going to be best for our community. What they did emphasize instead was increased outreach, resources, services for our community, to decide that what we need to invest in most right now in this period of fiscal responsibility, which was another key term you ran on, is an intensely new stickering system, seems both illogical and financially irresponsible. And then finally, as a parent of teenagers in this community, the idea that we're going to somehow ban teens from the teen room is deeply upsetting to me. The library is a safe space for our teenagers in a community where we have very few safe spaces. If they can't go to the teen room at the library, where are they going to go? Where are they going to occupy instead? They will be less supervised and less safe than they are in the teen room. Thank you very much.
Ryan Elking from
Hi. Excuse me. And just to pull to the Red Wings, try to channel that, lead with a joke, no matter how bad it falls. Good evening. My name is Brian Elkins. I'm a local resident, and I've come here tonight to express my support for the library and the freedom to read. Our great country has as its foundation the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom of the press, the freedom of assembly, and the freedom to petition. Libraries support and exist under these freedoms. A library is one of the most, if not the most, individualistic institution where a person can go and seek whatever they may be looking for. Or if they can't find it there, they can go to a librarian and potentially get connected with the information they're looking for. Outside of intentionally looking for something, people may also discover things that may be done by chance, by serendipity, or by providence. With all of those things being said, I wouldn't consider myself in a position to say what someone else should or should not have. And I would also like to support the library to continue on to provide those things for people.
Thank you. Suzanne Everett from Bartlett.
Good evening. I am a Heartland resident for 28 years. I raised my family here. I have a great appreciation for the library, its programming, and how it resources the community. Specifically, I want to thank the staff for being welcoming and helpful. One of the ways the library serves the community is to provide a rich array of information, experiences, and learning, whether that is through books, programs, music, art, even their library of things. I appreciate when there are displays or communications about new resources or the highlighting of a particular collection, such as there was for Black History Month. It's helpful to lift up books and resources that supplement our knowledge of American history. I personally have been enjoying a variety of novels through Hoopla, and I find that when I read authors who have a different ethnic, racial, or life experience from mine, my worldview is enriched and expanded. As a Christian, I am called to love God and love my neighbor as myself. If I don't know my neighbor, it's harder to love them. The library serves a great purpose in knowing not only the people I live in close proximity with, but also opening my understanding to the lives of those who live beyond the physical boundaries of our community. My hope is that the library will continue to provide resources that help us know one another more richly, and that includes the LGBTQ community, all races and nationalities. The library needs to be a safe and welcoming space for everyone. As an elected body, you represent the entire community, which includes people regardless of their race, gender, ethnicity, religion, and/or sexual orientation and gender identity. You don't get to choose who you represent. Thank you.
Sarah Raphael from Howell, Michigan.
Good evening, members of the board and community constituents. The public library is and has historically been a community center and a place to access knowledge and resources for all members of its community, regardless of age, economic status, gender, or sexual orientation. If my point wasn't clear in the previous sentence, that includes community members that identify as LGBTQ+, which absolutely exist in Heartland and in Livingston County. Public libraries are funded by taxpayer dollars, and members of the LGBTQ+ also pay those taxes. Most importantly, the public library is a safe space for everybody in the community. By discontinuing the observance of Pride at the Cromaine Library, you are telling those people that they are unwelcome within its doors. You would be telling them that this place of knowledge and safety is no longer safe for them. One of the only places that they may actually feel safe in our county, to be honest. I have 2 young children, and I enjoy the Pride displays within all areas of the Cromaine Library. We check out recommended books on display both for my kids and myself. I also take my kids to Pride events in the area to help teach them about people from all walks of life, to be accepting and to be kind. I was raised in Howell. I now live in Heartland. I'm proud of the ways that the library has supported the LGBTQ+ community, and I do not wish to see that taken away by this board. Observing Pride helps our community learn about kindness and acceptance of a group of people that has been historically marginalized and oppressed. Additionally, I am the parent of a child with a disability, an employee of the ARC Livingston, serving those who have intellectual developmental disabilities and their families within the county. Disability Pride Month is in July. It's celebrated because, much like Pride Month in June, people with disabilities are proud of who they are. It teaches others in the community about kindness and acceptance of those with physical and intellectual disabilities. Please don't take this observance away just because it has the name Pride in it. Is it the intent of this board to dismantle any programming for minority and underserved populations in our community? Because if so, I vehemently oppose any and all attempts to do so. I will say it again, the public library is for all.
Lou Patella from Heartland. Lynn. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Len Patella from Heartland. I'm in support of labeling the books and eliminating the observance of Pride Month. The library has been in steady decline over the past several years when they started to cater to a small group of individuals at the expense of the rest of the public. Nobody is talking about banning books, and that has never been the case. We just want them labeled if they have any sexual content. There's no downside to labeling. Everyone is free to have their kids read whatever they want, And if you want your kids reading some of the porn that is being offered in the library, then the labels will help you find those books. For the parents that don't want their kids reading porn, the labels will help them stay away from them. It's a win-win. As far as the observance of Pride Month, the library belongs to and is paid for by the entire community, and you should not be catering to any single group of individuals. It's time to clean up the mess the liberals left and get back to providing services to the entire community. Thank you.
Lynn Bliss from Harlan.
I feel very unprepared, but what I would like to start out with is that the library has gone over and above for our family at a very difficult time. And because of the devotion of that very good friend that you know I'm talking about, I wanted to become more involved, and I don't have a lot of money to donate like what he did. So I wanted to volunteer, and I just, in my busyness, I hadn't spent a lot of time in the library. We went to story hour when my children were tiny. But then, you know, my full-time job, it kind of took over. My background is special education with a reading specialty, and even though I haven't taught in the public sector, I've done private tutoring. I have been involved with groups of children where we were taught to be very careful for liability as well as the welfare of the children, not just physically bolting out into the parking lot as sometimes happens with special needs kids, but also for the sad reality of predators. And so we have background checks, and we also had training. And it was very sobering to go through that training where the main emphasis was looking out for predator behavior. And I am a hugger, and when kids have their birthdays, I like to give them gifts. I like to make sure that they are acknowledged. But then I learned that there are some people with less benevolent motives, and you can't always tell where that's grooming behavior. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways, the sad and sorry system is that they would try to gain the trust of the parents. And then they would expose the children intentionally to either sexually explicit or violent material, at the same time kind of demonizing the parents and separating them in their minds from the kids. And so I guess, and I'm scattered, I'm so sorry, I didn't have this presented, I just found out yesterday about the meeting. But when I went online, I was looking at the book clubs because that was kind of in line what I thought I had in mind, and I looked at the tween section, and it had a book that was called Buzzing. And so I read the description for the story, and it was for the tween club, so that's ages 7 through 12. And basically it's a book that's written by a man, his last name I think is Satin. And it's about a child with obsessive compulsive behavior who is under therapy and is having difficulty with their thoughts and staying focused. And that there was a group of children that kind of invited them into what I would equate with a Dungeons and Dragons role-playing scenario. And this, in the book, it describes that as whenever the child would get with this group. Am I running out of time?
You are out of time.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I was a little concerned because at that age group, kids don't have a sense of, boys have cooties, girls are gross, and sometimes they grow out of that, and that book didn't even go into there, and I felt that was inappropriate, and if an individual did that, I would call it grooming behavior. Sorry, thank you.
Dan Kennedy on Old Lane, and I'm not sure what city, so if you would please identify where you're from.
Sure. I'm actually from here. I grew up here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Just so you all know, I am Van Kennedy. I've actually been in this space for years. I grew up here. I did encore theater, and this is very much so a place that's very familiar. And I do want to share a little bit more about who I am, because I think that's very important. Someone earlier said, you can't love your neighbor if you don't know who they are. And so I'm one of your neighbors. I am a teacher. I'm a parent of 2 beautiful children, and I'm trans, and I'm gay. And it really hurts to hear how much people hate that. I'm also a Christian, and I know that we're supposed to love each other. And something that we don't experience a lot is love. And when you come to a library, you get to see yourself represented. It's one of our few safe spaces. I've always loved it there, and I felt safe there. You take away those opportunities for someone who grew up in a space where I was not loved for who I am. And I need those opportunities. As a Christian, I implore you to not think of everyone as needing to be separated. We are together. We need to love each other, and it's very important that we don't exclude others. And I see that you're smiling right now, and that again hurts my heart because I'm crying right now, and I'm trying to share with you what my experience was as a member of this community. And again, I don't want to demonize anybody's opinions. I just want to share with you, I am a person. I grew up here. I am trans. I am gay. And other people are too. It's not just me. And I hope that that is reflected in what I see in my library. Thank you.
Nancy Ross from Brighton, Michigan.
Hi, I have been a member of this library since I was a small child, and it was very important to me as a teenager, especially as a teen volunteer at the library, that I had access to a lot of books. That gave me the ability to learn about who I was as a person and also about other people. The ban on sexually explicit material, or just labeling it, is interesting because my concept of sexually explicit material are books that are already in the adult section of the library. They are not already in the teen section. Books that are in the teen section do not contain explicit sex scenes, so they are not there. And so why do they have to be, adult books have to be labeled? Because they are adults reading them. They have the right to read whatever book they want. So labeling books is inherently pointing out books that are just against your ideals. If you're labeling them just because they contain any information about sexual orientation, then you have to label almost every book in the library because heterosexuality is a sexual orientation. Learning about how people interact is important, and there are appropriate books at different levels to teach these things, and they should be in the library available for every person. Thank you.
Connie from Heartland Township, I've written the last name.
Good evening, Connie Robinson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Children are gifts from God. Young children are helpless, and as such, it is the responsibility of all adults to protect our children. Labeling books to protect their innocence is just common sense. Yep. This is not meant to be an attack on any individual or groups.
Right.
And while I respect individual choices, I am tired of the majority running roughshod over the majority of taxpayers who fund our schools and our library. Additionally, I would like to know when we became a community that supports porn in our library.
Yep.
One such book is Genderqueer. This is a graphic, vile book and has no place in our public library. People who wish to see and read this kind of filth are free to do so. It's all over the internet and should be accessed in the privacy of your own home. Thank you.
Deb Whitson from Brighton, Michigan.
Wow, I was not expecting this tonight. I just came to talk about how great our library is and how much I appreciate it for my family. We've been here for over 30 years now. I've raised 3 children here who all adore our library. I was part of the community survey that happened, and I was a very active person in that survey. And I came away from that survey with such positivity from a huge response from our community about how they really loved what the library was doing, how our librarians serviced our community, and how they took care of our children in the library. And, you know, one of the things I never heard was that they wanted to limit my rights as a parent to what my children have access to. That is my prerogative as a parent to decide what my children read or don't read. And if you're a parent and you are not paying attention to what your children read, that is your problem as a parent, not my problem. Please don't limit my children's ability to get a book from the library based on your own standard. This is a community library. And I'm sorry, but the majority of people in this community are not part of the LGBTQ community or any of the minority populations in our community. They are the minorities, and they deserve some respect and a place where they can be. I can tell you, there's not a moment in my life where I have not had to deal with something and told my librarian, hey, this is what's happening in my world with my children or my husband, and this is what I'm looking for a book for, and not been able to get that at our library. Whether it was in our library itself or if they had to find it in West Bloomfield or Birmingham or Walled Lake, what have you. And you know, it's almost a family joke in my family that every time we have a life event that happens, whether it be puberty that happens or, you know, whatever, that mom says, let's go to the library and pick out a book. And I want those options for myself and my children. And I am paying attention to what my children need and what my children are allowed to read. And I don't like that I've been threatened by a sheriff's statue. Like, I don't even know where you got that from. That's not fair. I have a right to raise my children.
Fine. This is a point of information. It's from the Michigan legal statutes. That's where it's from, the law of our land. Greg Killer, Heartland, Michigan.
Good evening. Greg Keller, Heartland Township. I also, just for full disclosure, I do serve on a local body, the Heartland School Board, so I just want to make it clear that my comments here are my comments alone and do not represent that of the local school board. So I do want to thank you for your service as well. Again, I can appreciate having a full crowd, and a lot of times they can get a little bit rowdy, go long, and 11 o'clock before you finally end up getting home. So it is a thankless job, so thank you all for being here. I think just as a observation, it would be helpful to the community if when you have your agendas, you would also include some of the materials I think that you probably also have as board members, so that we can kind of see what potential policy changes you are actually discussing or making, so that way we can comment intelligently on those. I also wanted to just kind of voice my gratitude for your consideration of bringing back the Pledge of Allegiance. I was kind of disappointed when I heard that it was removed, so thanks for your consideration of that. I do hope you re-implement that. There's a lot of people that died to give us the right to be here, so again, I think we need to continue to honor that tradition. Regarding the labeling, I do support a common sense labeling approach. I mean, just the same way you go to the grocery store, you find a label on food. You go to the movie theater, there's a rating on a movie, there's a rating on TV shows. I think having ratings is just an appropriate way to inform the consumer of that product, what it is, and really it doesn't need to be a lot of hysteria around it. So again, I hope you will consider that. The Social Cause Month, I do support that. I think we've seen a lot of companies moving away from that, and I think it's something that, you know, we all want to be Americans, so let's stop celebrating only certain Americans. Let's have America Month instead of this month or that month. You know, in school board, there was a lot of concern over the elimination of the rainbow stickers, right? There was a lot of packed rooms hearing similar arguments, and ultimately the board did decide to eliminate those, and I think, you know, it's been probably a year now, and I think everything's just been okay. So I think, you know, as a board, you do need to kind of put aside some of the emotions that you're going to hear and make your decision. So thank you again for your time.
Kate DeRosser, DeRozier from Harvard.
Yes, I'm the person who stood up and hollered in the back of the room. I'd like to start out by saying I'm sorry that Don Thompson isn't here tonight, a past president and honestly a man who has been instrumental in the beautiful room that we are in tonight, in the care of it and the management of it. Truly. You know, I'm going to address the elephant in the room, but, you know, it's true. When I put in my comments, I'm here in support of the First Amendment, freedom to read, the right to choose what books you want to read. The fact is that people who run for library boards run on a nonpartisan basis. You don't have constituents, you have a community, an entire library district that depends on your decisions and your wisdom and your thought and your care. And that includes maybe folks that you don't like, including possibly me, and that's fine. It may be people who think differently or live differently, but the point is this is a public library. It is for over 22,000 people in the district who are served by it. And I'm very impressed with the people who stood up and spoken before me. Basically, you know what? A lot of this is a political issue. Let's address the elephant in the room. I tell you, I served as board president, and I served on the board for the library for, I think, 8 years. I also worked on the library millage campaign, which was passed by the community, and I thank everybody for that. The point is that up until, you know, a few years ago, we met in a community room, and maybe we had 1 or 2 people who attended. That's it. And this has become such a divisive, it's a wedge issue. And yes, I was angry, Mr. Bolin, for the way that you gave off you spoke out of turn. It wasn't your time to speak, it was the call to the public according to the agenda that was approved unanimously, and I don't appreciate it. I'm here to say people have a right to read what they want to. The librarians are well-educated and professional staff. The library is a public institution, a neutral zone for every single person to feel safe, to come to get help with anything, to meet other people, to enjoy programs, explore ideas.
Thank you.
Julie Bellotti from Harlan, Michigan.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to this forum here. My name is Julie Bellotti, and I'm a resident of Heartland Township and pay taxes that support the Cromaine District Library. It's great to see how many people have come out to the library and that care about the library. While I'm sure everyone wants the very best library for our community, I'm sure we all have different opinions on how that would be achieved. I want to speak in particular about some of the books that have more recently been purchased by the library, by the taxpayers' money, especially for the children and teens. I feel like many of these new books are pushing an ideology that's not truthful, an ideology that is acceptable to identify as something other than your biological sex, and that conclusion to believe otherwise is somehow hateful. I also believe that there are many other topics included in our children and teen sections that are harmful to them and don't aim to keep their innocence. While other children say, while other people will say that some of us want to ban books and are hateful towards others, I think it's more important to love others by speaking truth and protecting innocence. I don't feel a need to go to other communities and tell them what they should have or shouldn't have in their libraries. Communities are made up of people who have the opportunity to vote for community leaders that represent them, such as library board trustees. People will argue that if you don't like a book, check out something else. The problem with that is that there are many people that feel like they can no longer take their children to the library to browse the books on the shelves and pick out what they want because there's unknown harmful content in some of these books, including the toddler books. There are teens who are uncomfortable in the teen room because of different displays and books that they happen to browse through. When people argue that something should be all-inclusive, they don't always realize that there are people that are left out because of things that would be objectionable by the majority of people in the community. We are fortunate to have a network of libraries to share books that can be interloaned. People talk about that here, that it's a great privilege to be able to check out books from other libraries, so there can be books in other communities that they approve of them more. We are fortunate we also, the community library should represent the majority of its community members. This can be determined by the decisions made by the board members that were elected by these people. Thank you.
Mary Pat Gaynor.
Hi, I'm Mary Pat Gaynor. I've been a resident of Heartland Township for over 30 years. I'm thankful for not only the many wonderful events our family has participated in over the years, from toddler story times to summer reading programs to the concerts on the lawn, but also for the friendliness and helpfulness of all the library staff. And of course, the work that you guys do. God bless you all. I just think God bless you all. The past few years, as a caregiver for my grandson, I've once again made trips to the library a regular part of our schedule. But unlike 30 years ago, I've been coming across more and more materials that have caused me concern, according to my family values, the values of my children, whose children I watch. And anyway, so for many years, the motion picture industry and even television shows have had content ratings and reasons for the ratings available to viewers. This doesn't seem to be a problem anywhere. So I just don't understand why it's a problem to label items from the library in the same manner. And that's why I'm here tonight, is to ask that you do that, because I want to avoid choosing items for my children, my grandchildren, that contain subject matter that's age appropriate, which I found in the children's library, even on the board books, for crying out loud, that are for 2-year-olds who teach them what colors are and numbers are and letters are. And anyway, and they're also contrary to my family values. In listening to some comments that have been said, yeah, you do work for the public, and the public elected you. And I knew what the people that I elected were running on, what their thoughts were, and I elected them because I want labeling of books. I want to be able to know what's in a book. I cannot read every book that my 10-year-old grandson on down to my 2-year-old grandson wants to read. I don't think any parent has the time to do that. So, and then once they get older, the books they read are like, it would take me forever. So I depend on people who are in this line of work to help by labeling the books so that it makes it a lot easier to choose. Otherwise, I won't be coming to the library anymore. It's just, I can find things elsewhere. Thank you very much.
Anthony McKenna, Brighton, Michigan.
I had a comment about last meeting. We had a beautiful presentation on the landscaping project. I think that is going to be a fantastic third space for our community. I really, really like that the previous administration has been able to keep a lot of cash on hand to pay for a lot of those upgrades and that improvement to our space. That has been a highlight of our talk at home of how important that change is going to be. And now to switch gears, I am appalled that so many parents here are willing to just abdicate their rights and their responsibilities to their children and allow these 7 people to decide who gets to read what. That's not their role. That's our role as parents. That's what we have to do. No. We have to do the hard work. I think it's appalling that you would like to ban Pride Month. Why? There's nothing to be gained by that. There's nothing to be gained by canceling it. And it is quite disturbing that this is the direction that you're choosing to go. Thank you.
Alex Yarber, Holly, Michigan.
Good evening. I'm Alex Yarber. I live in Heartland. I appreciate what you're doing tonight. I'm full support of labeling these books. I'm full support of getting rid of the pride recognition. And I just want to give you a little bit of perspective. Everybody, there's a lot of different opinions here tonight, and there's people that think that your kids should be able just to go into the library and read whatever they want. Okay? So I'm going to preface by stating that no one here who shares my opinion is trying to take away books. We're not trying to villainize anybody. We're not trying to tell any parent what their children are allowed to read. We just simply want a label so that parents and children know what's in the book. Okay, and so how does that equal book banning? Well, I'm going to read one of these books to you. This is a book called Genderqueer. For years, my standard method of masturbation was stuffing a sock into the front of my pants and manipulating the bulge. This would evolve into hip thrusting while thinking of my latest gay ship. Memorably, I got off once while driving just by rubbing the front of my jeans and imagining getting a blowjob. When I finally got old enough to not be embarrassed talking about this stuff with my sister, and it's a boy and a girl talking, a brother and a sister, it really never occurred to you to put something into your vagina, not even a finger? It really didn't. So you've never tasted yourself? What? No. Ooh. Wait, you have? Ah, of course, you should try. And so, vagina slime. Okay, this is what these folks who are promoting the First Amendment are wanting your kids to read when they go into the library. I don't agree. I don't agree. I'm going to reclaim my time. We're not in favor of this. Is pornography.
Yes.
And we're just simply asking for labeling of books. And my wife read these books on a Facebook post that she made. She didn't say we want to ban books. She didn't say this book is terrible. All she did was read the book just like I did. And lots of negative comments. And she and I were both rewarded by being listed on a hit list by a liberal group in Heartland called Sage Livingston Integrity.
And we got docs with their names on the internet, so thanks.
And that's public knowledge. That's
And our
public
addresses.
document.
Point of order, please, let him speak.
Oh, now it's.
So the people that are promoting this smut are a little bit unstable and need to just calm down and think about the rights of the parents who don't want their kids reading this material.
Right.
Thank you.
Anne Marie Yarber, Hartland, Michigan.
Hi, my name is Anne Marie. I'm a sophomore at Heartland High School, and I've been a teen volunteer here at the library for almost 4 years. And I'm speaking today to explain why I think the board should consider adding the Pledge of Allegiance back into monthly meetings, as this will be a discussion topic during today's meeting. But first, I should address criticism of the Pledge of Allegiance. Some may find it easy to dismiss a tradition like the Pledge because they aren't particularly proud to be American. They may argue that the American government commits too many wrongdoings for them to stand up and say, I pledge allegiance to this country. But the pledge has never been a proclamation that the US government is infallible. Rather, by reciting the pledge, a person says, though this country isn't perfect, I believe in the ideals that it represents, and I will fight for these ideals each day. But what's even more important is that the Pledge of Allegiance is a reminder of the freedoms we enjoy in America. This is especially significant in a setting such as a public board meeting. As Americans, we have the freedom to elect officials who will lead our schools, libraries, and townships. And we have the freedom to attend meetings and let our voices be heard by these officials. The Pledge of Allegiance, at least for me personally, helps me appreciate my freedoms more fully and to speak up when I have something to say. However, some people still may be hesitant to participate in the pledge. But here's another freedom that we have in America. We have the freedom not to say the Pledge of Allegiance. If someone doesn't want to participate, that's okay. And I hope that person has the courage to follow his or her convictions. But there are many people who may want to participate, and I believe those people should have the opportunity to do so. The pledge is recited each day across the country. It's a reminder of the rights we have as Americans and a reminder of the sacrifices that have been made to protect those rights. So I hope the board will consider making the Pledge of Allegiance part of monthly meetings once again. Thank you.
I'm a little bit taller, sorry. Thank you all for being here. I know it's a hard job, and thank you for everybody that's come up here and spoke tonight. It takes a lot of dedication as well. It's hard to follow that, but also that's why I'm here tonight. I really hope that we take in consideration bringing back the Pledge of Allegiance. I am a combat veteran, sorry.
Thank you.
Hard.
I've buried several friends under that flag, and it means a lot to me and to my country. That flag has so much more to me than most people. And I just can't explain how much it is that we honor that flag. And I'm not asking for everybody to say the Pledge of Allegiance, but just to be able to stand up and to honor it at the beginning of the meeting would have meant so much more to me to do that. And that's all I'm asking, is if we could have just done that at the beginning and honor it for my friends that didn't make it home and the ones that I buried when I did come home. It would have meant a lot. That's all. Thank you.
West Country Garden, Heartland, Michigan.
Good evening, thank you very much. Wes Nakagiri, Heartland Township. I'm also on the county board representing Heartland Township and the eastern part of Osceola Township. So the comments tonight are my own. I'm not speaking for all of the county. But I echo what some of the folks say, the Marine that just spoke. I encourage you to adopt the Pledge of Allegiance. In fact, I was quite shocked. I had been informed that there was a vote in December to institute the Pledge of Allegiance, and that vote failed 4-3. And now the board has changed. It's I will characterize it as 5 conservatives and 2 less conservative, and I hope that the vote prevails to incorporate the Pledge of Allegiance. I also want to share my thoughts regarding the labeling the books. I don't believe it is banning the books. I liken it to another gentleman had said it's kind of like the rating system that we've had on movies for years. You know, rating from G to PG to R to X, you know. I think it's just common sense to put some kind of indicator on the books for parents to have a understanding of what kind of content is in that book. So I encourage the board to pass that. With regards to Pride Month, I think I would like to see the community, the library, to get away from the celebration of sexual ideology. I think that we would be better served if we would focus on education, ABCs. If we, in fact, a friend of mine had said that she had examined, and I don't know how she did it, but did a survey of the books in the library, and there were about 150 or thereabouts that were on the Constitution, talked about the Constitution. There were twice that many on gender ideology. So I think the proportionality is off too, so I'd ask the board of library trustees to address that. The last thing I'd like to speak to, there was a bill that was did not pass in lame duck that would have given the authority to choose the books solely to an unelected person. I'm going to call it unelected bureaucrat. That is taking away the rights of the citizens to have their voice and what is the content in the library. And I was shocked to find out that that bill was being promoted by the Michigan Library Association. So in essence, they want unelected people to do the choosing. I want elected people because if I disagree with you, I can vote you out of office. Right. An unelected person is there and I have no say. I want my say as a voter and a citizen. And I ask you to maybe reconsider your relationship with the Michigan Library Association. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, if there be no further public comments for those who wish to speak, if you would like to, please make sure you fill out the card, have it turned in up here. If not, we're going to take a brief recess. And at this time, immediately following the director's report will be taken. 5 minutes.
I'll make it. But it doesn't overlap with anything.
The next item on our agenda is the director's
Probably
report.
more important things that other people, anyway.
Okay, everybody, this is the first time I've done this with a mic, so let me know if you can't hear me. Every month I give the board a director's report. This month, the main bulk of it is about our strategic goal to increase investments in people and resources at the library. We've been doing a lot of HR work around that goal. My assistant Darlene, who's next to me here, and I met with a HR company yesterday for 3 hours. We're doing what's called an HR audit, where they're going through all of our policies and procedures in order to help us make sure we're meeting all of the requirements, both by law and just for best practices. It was really helpful, actually. I was glad that the Personnel Committee encouraged us to do it. The minimum wage update, I haven't checked my email during this meeting. Minimum wage, we've increased, we had 3 staff members who were not making what is now the minimum wage. As of tomorrow, it's $12.48 starting tomorrow for people that make minimum wage. They've been informed. I don't know if people here, I know people on the board have heard about the Earned Sick Time Act, ESTA. That is slated to go into effect tomorrow. I have that further down in discussion, so I'm just going to jump past it. Okay. We have a scheduled installation of new office furniture for staff in the first floor work area. That's going to happen the first week in March. It should take about 3 days. I'm excited for the staff that are in that area because they're in an open concept now and cannot focus if I walk through the room. So they will be getting a better layout. We've been working on that for about a year, the board and I. We've been reviewing the pay scale. There's details in here about that, but I am preparing the upcoming budget and the pay scale info will be in it. We're also talking about the library's health insurance offerings. We offer Blue Care, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, PPO, and I do have an appointment with our insurance broker to look over potentially adding other things to our plan. We have an excellent plan that we offer employees. I take it myself. What we would like to do is give options for family coverage. We have no family coverage at this point. Right now, you have to pay the full amount, so that's just on the radar for investing in people and resources. We've been doing a lot of technology updates. I know you can't tell because we're in this room. The library had, all of the PCs in the library were for 2018 when I started, so we've been working over the last 2 years to update them on a schedule. And I had the opportunity to work with the new company that we started working with this last year. They're called Applied Innovation, to install 8 new staff member PCs. The public service desks are considered staff PCs, and then some that are in the back, and 4 PCs in the adult area. So those PCs were from 2017. So they now are updated. I don't know if the public will notice, but hopefully they'll work better from my point of view. And I did write a little bit in here, but it's the first time I got to really work with Applied on site, and it was really worth the money. We had them for 6 full days, and we paid for the project, not the hours, so it was good use of a person's time. And then finally, we just got the new printer installed, which again, I know this is all the boring stuff of the work of the library, but we had a printer that was from, well, I don't know the date, but it was 8 years old, so do the math. That just got installed the other day. It's been quite a thing. We print a lot of paper, so it was helpful when I made this. I was able to scan the board packet in and send it to the board members. We can discuss that when we talk about the 8,000s. It'll come up in that. But I would really like to be able to make it available to the community, and somebody in Call of the Public mentioned that, and I think it would help with transparency for you to see all the stuff we have up here. I know that's board members' goals for a few years now. So I'm hopeful that this new machine can do it. It might not be pretty, but it'll at least still be there. And then one of my goals this year, and again, this is the non-sexy work of the staff that run the library, but we had 3 plain old telephone lines, POTS lines, 2 for our fax machines and 1 for the emergency elevator. If you get stuck in there, you can call someone. But those are very expensive to pay for every month. So I have now, with the new machine in the staff area, been able to get I guess it's VoIP, they explained it to me, but it's a digital faxing service that fits all the rules for faxing. We also replaced the plain old telephone line that was running the backup to our security system. And the last one is the elevator, and I have a plan for that. So it's about to happen. That'll save the library $3,000 or $4,000 a year for not having to pay for plain old telephone service. So bureaucratic work is not sexy, but it is important. I mean, that is what I do day to day. I have department updates in here. I'm not sure I want to read them all. Bill asked me to read through this instead of just passing by it, so I'm trying. In January, the Adult Services Department hosted 14 programs for 214 patrons. And then she gives me highlights. The other thing that we still get is people come in to get paper tax forms. So we have federal and state. People still come to get them. People in Heartland like to have them in print. We'll print them out for people if they don't have the few, because they only send us the basic forms. So that's a great service for the community. In January, the youth department did a bunch of big programs in addition to their regular story times and things like that. They did a Higgy party, I think it's Higgy. That's the like cozy Scandinavian thing. They did a puzzle and board game swap that was really well attended. We had the whole community room was full of puzzles and board games, and it was wildly popular. I didn't have many to get rid of this year. The few that we had left, I took to the senior center, and they took all of them. So it was a great kind of reuse, and we already give things away for free, but it was a nice way to get people to give us some things that we could then put back out into the community. That same youth librarian really likes to do things like that, and she has done a craft swap in the summer months, so look forward to that again this year, because it was really fun. Baby play group. We have a baby play group every month, and they just come in and play. It's kind of for the parents as well as the kids, because sometimes you're isolated when you're home with a little baby. We work in partnership with Early On, and I listed out for board members what Early On is. I don't know if you all know that. I used it with my youngest. She has speech delay. They basically are a statewide program, and they help identify issues with early learning and development. We partner with them so that they tell people about our playgroup and they send people to us. So it's kind of really nice. We're getting new families every month from that group, and I have a little information in here about that. The teens, I did not put much in here about the teens, but they had an open mic night this last month, and everyone who showed up actually performed, which just holding this microphone's making me really nervous. I'm usually really good about speaking in the room, but I don't like having the microphone. So for a teen to stand up and read a poem or whatever with a microphone, it's a little different. I don't want to read everything that community engagement does, but it's so much. Liz, who's in the back here, who helped greet you all, does a great job with community engagement. We have our scholarships out for the community. I hope you've all heard about those. We have a scholarship for volunteers and post-secondary scholarships. I have Janine and Holly who volunteered to help judge those, so stay tuned. Every year we have great response, and there is a response from one of the kids later. We had a wedding in our community room in January, and we had a group of local American Heritage girls do some volunteer work with us in the hall for the music program with all the candles. I don't know if anyone here came to that. We had over 300 LED candles lighting this room up, and we had a violin and a piano player for love songs through the ages. And the best part was, for me, someone called and said, I run this troupe and we need something to do. And sometimes it's really hard when we get volunteer requests, because if we don't have a good job for them, you almost don't want to offer, like, do you want to clean or do you want to, organize things. So that's usually what we do in the library. But Liz came up with that idea. They helped us set up all the candles for the event, which again seems like grunt work, but they had a really good time with it. We got some great pictures. let's see what else. Winterfest was January, oh no, that just happened. We helped plan Winterfest with the township this year. I don't know if anybody went. I was there and it was cold. It was cold and icy. We are planning next year's Vintage Christmas event. We are working with many events that are coming up. I won't list them all. But things happen because we plan them all year. So I just like to point out to people that we're working now for Christmas for next year. Some of this is really involved, so I'm not going to read it to the group. Music hall administration. So for everybody in the room, this building is administered by the library, and so we try to do things in it. I mentioned the candlelight concert already. We had 110 people at that. It was a free event. May 2nd, we have the Kilgan, Oregon fundraiser, the third one. We have the Kilgan, Oregon. We are almost to our goal. We need $8,000 to get there, and we've already secured $1,000 for this year. So see more for that. We'll talk about it a lot when it's coming. It is not until May 2nd. Heartland Art Walk. I have a lot of information in here about Art Walk. It's going to be in September. It's 3 weeks from September to October. We are working on, the library's really leading it this year. I shouldn't say we're leading it, but we came up with an idea. We're going to do a Weaving Heritage Celebration from September 27th at the library in the music hall and the History Museum down the street. We're all going to be doing demonstrations and hands-on crafts about weaving. I don't know if everyone knows, but weaving was a big deal in Heartland in the 30s, 40s of the last century, if you can think of it that way. We applied for and won a Michigan Humanities Grant for $22,500 to help fund it. We are working on a commissioned weaving piece that is fully funded by the Friends of the Library. They gave us $5,000 to do this work. And we are just narrowing in on the artist, so there'll be a lot of PR around this, so I don't want to give it all away. But it's going to be really neat. I didn't know a lot about fiber arts. It's going to be really interesting for Heartland because it's about the history of the village, the library, all the Cromaine, Heartland area project stuff. So I could talk about that all day. So that's the bulk of my report. And then I have patron comments. The one I'd like to point out, and this is why it would be great to have it online, because you can all just read them yourself. But we got a letter in the mail from one of our scholarship recipients from last year, Carolyn Phillips, who was one of our team volunteers who I got to know. And she just thanked us for the scholarship and for making a difference, and it was great. The last thing is, it's a scholarship thing. I have some PR in here about the scholarships. Now, every month since the fall, I've had the teen volunteer representatives during my report, and they hadn't been able to meet, but they did tell me they wanted to talk today, so we can keep it short, because I didn't forget you. But if you want to use that microphone, maybe, guys. I know Elizabeth and Liz might want to make very short statements about TAB.
Hello. Oh, I'm short.
Yeah, pull it down, yes.
Oh, you pull it down? Like that?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Liz, would you like to go first, or would you like me? All right, excellent. Hello, my name is Elizabeth. I was one of the teenagers who
Closer to the mic.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth. I was one of the teenagers who did amateur poetry at open mic night. Oh dear, where was my speech? I'm gonna need a new notebook. No, I have my speech. Oh dear, that's a bit lengthier than I originally intended. I understand that there have been a couple of incidents with teens in the library behaving poorly. However, when considering limiting the movement of teens throughout the library, I would like you to consider a few things. First of all, these incidents are not across the board, and they do not reflect the majority of the teenage patrons. Teenagers have been coming to the library for years, especially after school, and we have yet to have issues with more than a couple of teenagers, whom the librarians have handled excellently. Limiting the movement of teens in the library due to the misbehavior of a few unfairly punishes the majority of them. Oh dear, where was I? Additionally, it harms the teen volunteer program as it blocks the ability for teens to work independently when the library is not fully staffed or when inevitably the librarians have to attend to something and step out. This does not just apply to the teen volunteers, but all teens when hoping to find a quiet space to work, especially when needing access to the computers. Just over last June and July, we had 40 teens contribute 821 hours to the library in volunteer time, which, and I can cite my source for this, I just need a moment, so if you want that, let me know. Which when translated to the estimated national value of a volunteer hour comes out to over $27,000 in 2 months. Some of the teens who spend time at the library have come from the teen center, which operates under different rules, and there is some adjustment needed. We just ask that as you, the board, move forward, we ask that you talk to the staff members and the teen advisory board when dealing with the teenagers in order to help deal with any issues that arise. Thank you. Liz?
Hello. For those of you who don't...
Are you shorter than me?
I might be. For those of you who don't know, I am Liz Gauthier, the other teen ambassador. I will elaborate on Elizabeth's viewpoints and add some of my own. If you were to limit the access to the teen room, you are cutting off access to books, computers, and a safe place for many of the teens in our community. The teen section houses not just books, but also 6 computers. Many teens use these computers very often. I have yet to enter the teen room and not seen a computer in use. They are usually being used for homework, research, or gaming, or just generally how they want to spend their leisurely time. If you were to shut down or limit the teen room access, I don't foresee where exactly we would put all of the teens. Half of these teenagers at Cromaine have been visiting the library for years, and once they reach 7th grade, many of us walk to the library after school. One of the most important reasons we ask you not to limit the access to the teen room is for the teen community. The teen room is the only place that really allows us to hang out with our friends, express ourselves, and to not worry about disrupting their patrons. If you've never been around a group of teenagers, it is very loud and very rowdy, which is why we are on the 2nd floor in a little corner. Occasionally, it can be a peaceful, quiet place to work, while at other times it serves as a great hangout spot for our friend groups. If the teen room closed, we would have to sit in the adult or children's section, which isn't really preferable and can put many in an awkward place. I'd just like to say, please try and coordinate with the library staff to not shut down the teen room, because it is a great resource for many of the TAB members.
All right, that's what we have. Any questions? Excellent.
Usually, I don't read the whole report and I just say, do you have any questions? Did you all have any questions about my report?
I just wanted to say thank you. Lots of wonderful programs, and to the staff and to you. And it's exciting.
There's a lot more building updates, but I'll send them in emails because we're getting a lot done lately.
Great job.
I want to give a couple shout outs here too. To Liz for the wonderful concert. It was great. If you had the opportunity to come to that candlelight concert, it was really nice. And also to Heather. Heather, we had the opportunity of having her at Farms. She had an outstanding job, and she also presented us with the books that she was going to discuss beforehand. And by the way, Farms has now 2 sets of all those books, so that was outstanding.
Thank you. And great job on our teen volunteers. Very, very much appreciated. In junior high, I spent 2 years volunteering in the library at my local school. So I understand what you're doing, and I think it's just wonderful what you're doing. As far as the next item in terms of discussion, we have a summary of our annual board evaluation. I did not participate in it as I am a new member of the board. But in terms of our self-assessment, we almost universally marked excellent, although there is one not applicable that runs through both reports. And the primary area on our self-evaluation or assessment of needing work would be working with the Friends of the Library in fundraising campaigns. And that is, I'm assuming that by our director's little nod of the head and that she agrees with that assessment. And that may be something that we do need to work on in the upcoming year. And in terms of the board assessment, again, there are primarily all excellence. There is one average. The NA goes all the way through. One average in terms of completing assignments and coming prepared. and another average on behaving in accordance within the mission, vision, values, and governing documents. And there are 2 averages of appropriate attention being paid to finances, HR, and legal compliance. The consent agenda, all excellent, minus the 1 NA. And in terms of supporting the organization goals, being well planned and having clear agendas, there's 1 person who marked average with the others affirming excellence, minus the 1 NA. There is an additional board discussion being welcome of different points of view, allowing for deep discussion on important topics and allows for adequate time talking about the future. We had 2 excellence, no average, 2 needs work, and 1 NA. And that is probably reflective of most of the sentiment. By the way, I do not mind public comments regardless of what position anyone takes. I think it is good for us to hear what people's opinions are as we are assessing what it is that we are doing as a board. And so for everyone who commented, I want to thank you for your participation. And we are all always open for additional comments if needed and necessary. The board chair and director meeting regularly, working as a team and communicating well with the rest of the board. There were 2 excellence, 1 average, and 2 not applicable. The director and myself, we have had the opportunity of meeting once following my election as the president last month. And we probably would have met more, but I just happened to have a vacation that had been scheduled a long time ago happen, and I just returned from it yesterday with a little bit of a suntan, playing in the Gulf of Mexico and on the beaches of Cancun. And in terms of trust and relationship building, we also have 3 who feel that it is average. 1 who says it needs work, and that is probably applicable, as we do need to have trust and relationship building on the board when we have people with different opinions and different ideas. And I would encourage any comments in how we build that and what we do. And there are those of us who do have different opinions so that we can work well together as a community that has been entrusted with the guidance of the Cromaine Library.
I was wondering if I could ask the board.
Sure.
For discussion.
So everyone knows what you're asking?
How we could work with the Friends more, because I know we'd had people go to the meetings. It's a hard group to penetrate. I don't know if they're here tonight, but right, so the fundraising of the last few years has been the book sales, right? And I know some board members volunteer. So that's a question. I don't have the answer for you, but I think it's worth, I know Becky's come to a few meetings. Really? You think?
For the boards, it seems like they want to be separate, which is understandable.
It's an interesting
Yeah.
dynamic.
Yeah, well, my concern for the Friends is they're an aging group, and they are starting to try to make succession planning and things like that. So I think we could support them with some, like having them on a board.
Sarah, I may resemble that remark, so be very careful.
Yeah, yeah. We have a very strong core member, so I think the board could encourage people in the community to volunteer for them, explain to people. So I might invite a friend member to come and talk to the board at one of the meetings like I do staff, to just say like what they think they could use.
That's a great idea.
It's hard for us to say what we think we can do for them, right? So, okay, I just thought.
Yes, that is a great idea and very appropriate. And if you want to invite one more to meet with us, I would be more than willing to entertain that. In terms of our committee meetings, dates, and committee assignments, I'm assuming that everything is happening as needed.
No, we got some TV games.
Okay. Oh.
So community relations, I think we picked a time, so we've got, 12 p.m. on second Wednesday still. Finance, I didn't know
Personnel, we didn't discuss it.
We did not discuss it. I would prefer if we were going to have a meeting.
No, this was just last year's.
Oh, this is last year's time, okay.
I know this, I was waiting for you to check with the email, so can you do this next month at 6:30?
Yes.
It'll be March, tell me the day. Is it March 6th? Yeah, but it's like a Thursday. It's a Thursday. In person?
Yes.
And so that'll be regular until we change it to so
Yeah, regular until we change it.
regular Thursday, 6:30.
And I meant to say that I would appreciate if we had that as a regular meeting time.
Which Thursday is the first Thursday of the month, Dawn? That was, yes. So first Thursday. Finance is the second Monday, 4:30. And community is the second Wednesday. At noon via Zoom. This one's via Zoom. And personnel's via Zoom. Noon at Zoom. I just said it. Yeah. This is last year's time, so that's why we're updating it for the next one's on. This last month we said we do it immediately. Okay.
Right, fund balances on
Okay. The Finance Committee met, and the fund balance has been a discussion topic for a while. And we've been advised by accountants, our auditors, that it is the appropriate thing to do. Effectively, what we have done, and Sarah put together an explanation that we've included in our packet to explain the numbers. Effectively, what it does is it distributes the money into specific funds. What it does is we have a bucket, if you will, that is set aside for our operating expense. And part of our policies is that we calculate what it takes for operations, and we keep that in a bucket. We also had a unassigned bucket that had what was advised to us as probably too much money because it was assigned. We wanted to assign the money, and that's exactly what we're discussing now, and the math that was presented in our explanation. And moving it effectively from unassigned to capital projects and capital improvements. So we have some really great projects on the horizons. I'm sure everybody, if you haven't heard about it and didn't participate, we have some plans to enhance our lawn, if you will. We use it in the summer times for the concerts. It's going to be a very, very, very positive improvement for the community. It can be used for all of the things that the library plans. It's going to be a much organized, much prettier space, a much more functional space, and it's also going to be very, very, very much of an improvement for the village too. So we've been working on it, and those who are aware, we've had a lot of strategic discussions on this. So everybody is very, very excited. So it was very prudent to put this money aside and put it into a bucket, if you will, so that we can demonstrate that we've assigned these funds for those projects. So that's a summary of the numbers. Questions or comments, or I would ask my finance cohorts if they have anything else they would like to add, or...
No, I guess Sarah spent quite a bit of time coming up with the formula, and if there were any questions by the board members, you know, how she got there, it'd be a good time to answer.
Yeah, the math is mathing, so.
The math is mathing. And so, this is discussion, but we're hoping that we'll make a motion later to do this, so.
This is your chance to ask if you're questioning why. Yeah, that's it.
I'm ready ready for full speed ahead on the project. All right, we need to do an assignment. We're going to apply to have a committee for the landscaping project.
I'll let Dawn speak to that.
So as part of our committee, we've been working on this, but we feel like this particular topic would take up all our time every month. So we thought it would be beneficial, and actually we could get participation, not just from the committee, whoever's interested in being on the project of trying to make these decisions. And one of the reasons we want to do this like sooner rather than later, since we haven't actually approved it, because we're looking at some more numbers that weren't budgeted. I don't know if you saw that in the plan, is we want to make sure we don't delay our progress. So if we can get a committee together now, then we don't have to wait for our meetings and people can work on that and just focus on that in addition to what we're already doing. But we thought it would be good to start it sooner.
And the good news is, when we get that adopted tonight, to pick the group, I do have detailed proposals, but I'm not gonna just pop it in the meeting. I figured I'll talk to that group about it. But I have a lot more answers to the questions we have. So I feel like it's doable. And timeline-wise, we could get this done before snowfall next year, if we start asking the questions that we have now. So, or at least by the next year. But I wasn't sure of that, but she laid it out for me.
Yeah, I'd love to serve on that committee. Are we looking for volunteers? Or?
You could talk, this is discussion, so just if you want to serve, now's your chance to talk.
I'd be interested.
Good. All right, update to the employee handbook.
That one.
Yes, sir.
This one's a little tricky. I am looking for the board, and you had nothing in your packet because in the personnel minutes, if you look, we talked about ESTA, the Earned Sick Time Act, briefly, really briefly, and I wrote it down. It requires a minimum of 1 hour sick leave to accumulate for every 30 hours worked for all employees. We do currently only give sick benefits to people who work over 20 hours, so it would affect 3 employees. The changes to the sick time section of the handbook need to be updated. I have been working with Ecto HR, which is the company we met with yesterday. I ran it by the lawyer. So I have in my hand a memo and a plan. I was waiting to see if they were going to do something tonight. I didn't know if they were going to delay it or change it. So when we get to that motion, I'm hoping that you will just empower me to make us compliant as of tomorrow or before the next board meeting and then approve it next month. I've run the plan by some people. I just don't want to put it in place and then pull it back and make it feel like a punishment to staff. So that's why I'm hesitating. I think in general it would be good for the 3 that don't have it to get some time, but I don't love how the law is written, so I'm waiting to see what gets sussed out. And who knows, we might check our emails later and find out things have changed. So that's why it's kind of strange in there. There is a motion, and I just wanted to make sure you all understood. I felt like it would be good to get board approval to just say, be compliant tomorrow, or whatever it looks like we're compliant today, right? And I will send that to the board and the staff at the same time. Any questions on that?
I think the idea of us giving you approval to keep us compliant is common sense.
Okay, great.
It does us no good to get out of compliance.
Yeah. And now we're looking at reviewing policies.
All right, as we are looking at reviewing policy, I know you had mentioned that you'd like us to go into closed session, so I would.
We should do after this.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We can do it now if you want. We do have the benefit, legal counsel showed up, Ann Cernick is the library's lawyer, and she was able to get here because comment went long. So I don't have to just hand you a piece of paper, she can explain it to you.
Okay, great.
We could do that now.
Why don't we do it now, while you're here, and that way if you have freedom to leave if you would like.
So you need to,
We need a motion.
Motion to amend the agenda.
no, we already did that. You need to say this. Somebody needs to say this. I can do it.
I make a motion that the library should state that we are going to go into closed session to discuss a confidential written legal opinion that is subject to attorney-client privilege. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
It has to be roll call.
Oh, okay, roll call. Let's see the roll. Thank you very much. Yes. Holly Naylor, how do you vote?
Yes.
That is a yes. I'm Nancy Rosso.
Yes.
Becky Baisley.
Yes.
Don Smith.
Yes.
Janine Gogliowski.
Yes.
Bill Bowling, yes. Kim Armstrong. By common consent and unanimous decision, we are going into closed session.
You can go in the drive-through.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
We have to roll call this.
We do have a roll call this one. Holly Naylor.
Yes.
Nancy Rosso.
Yes.
Becky Baisley.
Yes.
Don Smith.
Yes.
Gene Gogliowski.
Yes.
Bill Bowling, yes. Kim Armstrong. All right, motion so prevails. We are out of closed session. And now at this time, we are going to go into discussion of item F. And so the reviewing the policies. Sarah, if you would like to.
That's personnel, so that's you.
Personnel policy 8000, 8001, 8002, 8003, the Pledge of Allegiance and call to the public. We are going to discuss the possibility of adding a second call to the public in each meeting, one at the beginning, one at the end, and also the addition of the Pledge of Allegiance back into our process. So if we have a motion for the pledge.
Well, wait, we have to do discussion.
Yes.
Point of clarification for our new board members and for the members of the public, the pledge was never removed from our agenda. It has never been a part of the library board meetings for known history, at least 20 years. So it was not removed. Just wanted to make that very clear.
Still voted against it.
That is true. I do want to mention that it was brought originally as a way to show respect where we had the flag installed. So that's where it came about. And it was voted down at the last meeting. I would like to say that I do support doing it. I support everyone's freedom to not choose to do it. And that's part of being an American, and that's one of the reasons I respect the flag, is because we have the freedom to do that if we choose to. So I would like the freedom to do the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of the meetings.
I feel like it's become a political issue. It's sort of a litmus test of how patriotic or how religious you are. We took an oath of office to represent all the people in this district. They include Christians, non-Christians, Jews, atheists, anybody. And the fact that it's become so hotly debated, it's not relevant to our work. I would like us to say the oath of office if we need to say something ahead of the meeting. I don't feel like this is in any way indicative of what kind of a representative I am on this board.
I'm the one that originally put it on the agenda and wanted it on the agenda back in October. I was not at the October meeting, so it did make it to the November meeting, and we were voted on it in December. It was quite interesting, the discussion. I don't know if you anyone has had a chance to read the discussion that it went online for this. My original intent of putting this on the agenda We had an Eagle Scout do a project and did a flagpole outside of the library, which is a great thing that he did. I don't know if you're aware that only 3% of gentlemen that are in Boy Scouts make it to Eagle Scouts. That being said, saying the pledge is said at all of the county commissioners meetings say it, all of the Heartland meetings say it too. So that was my purpose and intent of putting it on the agenda for discussion. It wasn't ever meant to be ill-intentional or harm anyone or what have you. But I really would be interested in if any of the public here has read the minutes and heard the discussion at the meeting when it was voted down. I, for one, would like to say the pledge before our meetings.
I do not understand. The Pledge of Allegiance has nothing to do with religion. We have all religions in the United States. The freedom of religion is one of the things that we have as American citizens. I disagree with that comment. It is not religion. It's about how I feel about my country. And I'm very honored to serve this community as an American citizen. And I would like to be able to do the pledge. Thank you.
I'm not going to go into it like I did last time, but I would just like to share that I have personally experienced harassment around the Pledge of Allegiance because some people felt apparently, like Nancy said, I didn't pass the litmus test. And I don't really think that that is what the heart of a library or this country is. So I think we can go ahead and make a motion and call a vote. I don't really think that there's...
We're in discussion.
Okay.
I have a question for clarity. We didn't put on the thing that's in front of you where we would put it. I'm assuming after roll call before roll call. I didn't mark it up.
That's my question from a technical mechanics perspective.
It came up after that meeting, so that's why that's where I put it.
So I'm not understanding, so help me out. So this is 8,003?
Yes, and it's not on there because we didn't discuss it. Well, we need the language too.
Right, so from a mechanics perspective, don't we need to? Is it right? Yeah. So this needs to go back, from a process perspective, it needs to go back to committee.
It did come up after committee, Bill brought it to me when we set the agenda. So
Okay. Okay, so this I don't know what I need to say, but it needs to go back, it needs to be modified, and then it needs to be brought back so we can look into the language.
That's right. I'm for saying the pledge. I think it's a good thing to do. It's good to remind ourselves that we're all Americans, regardless of race, creed, religion, ethnicity. We are what we are. That we are Americans. We stand united, and we lose divided. That's just the way it works. I'm proud to be an American. I'm very fortunate to have been born here, and we're Americans. Saying the pledge is just a statement of allegiance to the country that has been so good for all of us. So I'm for saying the pledge. And is there any further discussion?
Which committee does it go to?
Personnel.
So it would go back to committee to actually add the language so there's an actual document.
And the other thing we should add is the call to the public, because I think what you said just now wasn't what I thought you were going to say. We need to discuss that anymore. I would like to, well, it doesn't matter what I heard the group say, move the call to the public to the end of the meeting instead of having two. Because I can't imagine doing another one.
Well, that's exactly,
So there's
that's exactly why we need a document.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So let's do that both.
And so what we need is a motion. We need a motion to refer this to committee for both the adoption of language that would give us the parameters for the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
We don't need a motion for it.
We send it back. All right, so thank you. We will refer this back to committee for the creation of policy for the Pledge of Allegiance and also for the call to public.
Well, we haven't had discussion about call to public. So I guess it looks like it came up in we need further discussion, in my opinion, of called public. So it sounds like, I guess I'm not quite clarified as to what personnel talked about, having an additional call
We
public?
didn't, it was after Bill put it on the agenda. I think it's worth discussing, right? So it's on the agenda.
Correct.
We
So,
used to have two. We took out one because of length. The discussion was, could there be one at the end? So that's discussed.
Right, at the other board that I serve at Metro Park, we have 2 calls for public, one at the beginning and one at the end.
And we used to.
Yeah, and my suggestion was that we go back to doing that so that after we've had our discussions and whatever it is that we're voting on, we give the public one additional opportunity to speak to whatever they've heard us discuss and vote. I think it's common sense to do. We don't have to if it's not the board's desire, but I think having 2 calls with public, it gives the public the ability on both ends of the meeting to make a statement.
So is your suggestion that people would have 2 opportunities?
That's
or
right.
You speak once at the meeting? Okay.
You can speak at both ends, sure, why not? I'm all for the public saying whatever the public needs to say.
I am also for the public I am very much for the public saying what they want to say, and I appreciate every single person that talked to us tonight, and that's a good thing. Although we did talk about this before, we had voted like a year ago when we had 2 calls to public, and this is the packed meeting I've ever seen. Not even as many people that are still here. That I've ever seen in a library meeting. That being said, we kind of did eliminate that before. I would be for just still doing 1 call to public, and if we could maybe move that till after we've had our discussion of situations, maybe before we do the decision.
Anyone else want to comment?
Absolutely, totally for everyone having a voice and saying what they said. But I've just come from the efficiency perspective, and I agree with one at the end, just from pure mechanics and efficiencies. And my question would be for consideration when the discussion goes back for the policy itself. I would think that the same guidelines apply, but just to make sure that it is that it's somehow recorded or documented that, we say name and where you're from, et cetera, et cetera. So just to make sure that's covered.
And I'd like a chance to look at it in committee, because I feel like I've read things about, like, if someone speak at both, it's being a problem, but I'd like some time to research.
And that's exactly what, yeah, for clarification, ease of digestion.
Yeah, I think it should go back to committee. It seems like if you presented something to us, it would be a lot easier.
And once again, I'm all for having the 2 call to publics, simply because we do make decisions, and we want to allow people to speak before the decision's made, so we understand what your opinion is, and then after the fact, to either agree or disagree. And generally, what my experience has been in Metro Park is the second call to public is almost non-existent in terms of response. But it's a courtesy that we make for the people to give them that opportunity. And again, it's usually it's a non-issue. And providing courtesy to the public, in my opinion, is a good thing to do all the time, as we are public servants. All right, so we shall refer these to committee, and then we will come back with determinations to vote. The second item that we have here is finance, and so
No, it's 6.
That was
first.
No, so, yeah, did we need to
We're just talking.
talk
Yeah,
about
that's
that
fine.
one? Does it?
I don't think they have other changes. One was changing the mission to a free mission.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I think we said it.
So, okay.
Becky, do you want to speak about this, or do you want me to?
Go ahead. You go first,
All
because
right.
you've got full support for Pat.
Yeah, and I'll just summarize it. So the finance policies we're looking at Becky's request, which I appreciate, we sent them for review to our legal firm because they had not been reviewed in a long time. We found that we don't need an investment charter and an investment policy, so we're suggesting rescinding the investment charter. So that's what we'll be voting on later. The updated investment policy was crafted by the legal firm. It hits all the points we need. We went through it. We recommend adoption. So it's been updated and it's adopting a whole new one. So it doesn't have a bunch of red through it because it's new. It covers all the things. We have to comply with one law. Michigan, the 20 tells us what we can invest in. We went through it with the person we invest with, so I feel good about that one. And then the budget policy, I updated. It has quite a lot of red on it, so there is a clean copy at the end of your packet if you want to look at it without the red. Basically, it has more language to give me more direction about how to do the budget, and it has been reviewed as well. So I think we're just recommending adoption, unless there's questions.
Other questions?
Thanks, sorry. Just wanted to add support and just say thanks for the work. And Sarah did a lot of good effort and work and on the budget because that was a rewrite. And she utilized all the best practices, and there was a lot of learnings and a lot of standardizations that went into it. So finance supports it. Yes. So.
Anyone else want to comment? I shall refer back to the committee for the members to vote, or? Okay, all right. Then I'll receive a motion then to, we don't need a motion for this. Oh, all right, it's in there. Thank you. Again, I just flew in yesterday, and I was gone for 2 weeks, and trying to get caught up with everything here as well as other items. So thank you very much. Our next item is item G, and that's items with sexually explicit material. We are now going to discuss that as a possibility. And is there anyone here who would like to speak to the issue? Yes, Bob.
This has been like an ongoing issue that we've had, and I do believe that we should actually handle that in committee and try to figure out wording, so that would be my recommendation. We did work on it before, we did come up with some things that are working, but clearly there's a lot of opinion about needing to do further. So I think that's something that we could work together as a committee and then bring something back to the full board.
I support that. That's how we've always operated before. We can't talk about something that we don't have.
I would just suggest that in the future, maybe, I know you're just starting in this role, Bill, but it's on for April, this policy, to be looked at, and we find out about it mid-meeting, and that there's language being floated around. So it felt very sort of unorganized. So, I mean, it would be much better if we could have our schedule set and, we go by what we adopted last month, which was to do it in April.
I would apologize for the last minute inclusion of the revision, but our discussion for the inclusion was 2 weeks ago, and I had thought that it had been added and that everyone would have been sufficiently forewarned. My desire to expedite the discussion about this one particular issue is I do understand that it was a boilerplate issue that had been discussed in the past, and that there has been some frustration on the part of some board members over either the lack of attention or action on that. And I felt that it warranted us moving it forward in order to expedite the discussion. And I would comment that it probably would be appropriate for us to include all sexually explicit material that we would deem to be such within the context of the library. That is what we're going to do, and that it doesn't just exclude one group or another, or be focused on one group or another, that we treat it with fairly and with an equitable understanding, so that we are doing what we would determine would be the best objective for our constituents. Yes.
Yeah, I think in the past, we've absolutely been able to come to consensus. I believe both of the votes that we've had on that policy were unanimously in favor, so wasn't really aware that there was any concern from board members. Look forward to having that conversation.
I have now informed you that there had been some concern, and which is what prompted me to move it up from the boilerplate into front burner. All right. So what I'm going to recommend that we do, or that we refer this back to committee for the formulation of language and for its potential adoption. All right. I just continued the observation of Pride Month. Is something that I again think that is appropriate for us as a board to consider for the library to, in my opinion, I think desexualizing the content in terms of one group over another is appropriate. If we want to have a Pride Month, do we want to add a heterosexual month? To me, it's nonsensical.
We can do that in July.
Yeah. Have fun. No problem. We could do that, or we could just not do anything and allow a person's sexuality, their sexual expression, to be between them and their partner, which is inappropriate, in my opinion, and leave sexuality where it belongs, between partners and not the public. And I think that is common sense, and I think it's appropriate. That's my opinion, and so is there anyone else who would like to speak to the issue? And then we go Holly first, and then Don.
This displays in the library have never been the board's decision or responsibility. That is our fantastic library staff's decision. We are not here to make day-to-day operational decisions. We have never intervened before in telling our librarians what they are allowed or not allowed to do. I personally think that is overstepping our bounds as a board, and will lead to negative things for our library. We aren't librarians. We have never intervened in this before. We have never told our librarians what they have to do or what they don't have to do. I don't really know that it's the place of government elected officials to enforce that. If you don't trust our library staff, then that's a problem you need to address. I trust our library staff, and I think they're fantastic. They've been doing a fantastic job forever, and I don't think the board should be involved in this at all.
My issue is that we are a nonpartisan board. We are a nonpartisan library. And this is an ideology that is partisan. Yes. So that's what I have a problem with. And when we had the pronoun pins out, I actually warned people that that would show that the library is promoting one view over another. We should be neutral. So we shouldn't have a special celebration for any ideology. This is an ideology. So this isn't about race, this isn't about anything else. This is about making the library fair and not promoting any groups over any others. That's my opinion.
Just a comment. Just from a mechanics, I'm all about mechanics and process and procedure. So again, refer back to committee.
documentation and subject literacy.
Absolutely, that's, which is what we would do. And I would concur with Don in terms of the perspective of what we should be. A library should be nonpartisan. It should not be ideological. I was surprised in becoming a board member and going through orientation and reading some of the documents that govern libraries. It is not partisan. We're not partisan. It's very partisan. The Library Bill of Rights and the interpretation of those rights are very partisan. And in my opinion, it would be best for us to move as much as possible to a nonpartisan position, to be as equitable and fair to all patrons, to make accessibility to the library as complimentary as possible. I think that's a wise and common sense approach in terms of who we are and what we are and how we serve our community.
I was going to say which policy and which community.
This, right in terms of private, would
Probably a community relation.
We need a new policy.
yeah, we would have to create a policy, right?
Well, because it's display in the library.
It should be community relations. It has to do with the presentation of the library to the community as being a nonpartisan place.
Usually I've thought of this professionally as falling under collection development because we only display what we have in the collection. So it makes sense to put it in that committee.
All right, so we shall refer this to.
And I just want
for-
clarity, we're talking about displays. We don't celebrate. Maybe we don't have parties.
Right, from the
So
display.
this would preclude the pride pins showing up again as being given out to kids. The pronoun pins.
Ergo, the need for documentation and policy and
That's the
verification is
question
something
from
to
a staff
review.
perspective. Is I follow policy, we just need
Right, so for the development policy, in terms of the idea of becoming nonpartisan versus very partisan behavior in terms of the documents that control the library. And
that's a second year.
I understand that, but in my opinion, the more Swiss we become, the more Switzerland, the better off in terms of servicing our greater community at virtually every level. To me, that is a sensible approach as a library. So we will refer this to committee for the creation of policy language. And let's see, limiting the ability of teams to be the team from alone staff member present. The reason why I place this on here, just so you know, last month before I was sworn in, I came into the library, popped in there, came early. I was looking around, just browsing. And when I went in there, there were 3 youth in there. One was studying or trying to study. There were 2 others that were actively engaged in. Well, if you follow me on Facebook, you know that I love octopus. I am an avid fan of octopus in almost any way it can be cooked. And the 2 youth that I happened to see in there were sharing pretty much one seat, and they were like octopuses, tentacles surrounding each other in very much sexual behavior. And there was no one there to monitor it. I tend to think that is a liability on our part, and I think that it's something that we should regulate and restrict in terms of proper decorum, proper behavior to minimize activity that could be damaging to a teen within the context of their expression of sexuality. By all means, I think the library should be an open place for teens to come to, for them to gather, to congregate, to have discussion, to study, but making allowance for activities that may not be in their best interest or in the public's best interest. Because the one teen who was trying to study was obviously distracted by what was transpiring. Because I had not been sworn in, I did not represent the library, so I didn't intervene, but I talked with our librarian about it and was told that our policy is basically to be hands-off in terms of behavior unless it becomes violent. I think that we should create a policy that allows us to create greater supervision within this one area in order to, because we're talking about teenagers, restricting their ability to have private sessions in terms of greater physical expression. And that is the reason why I added this. It was simply from observation of walking into the building and stumbling upon something that I thought could lead to other possibilities. What if a child is raped? What if a child becomes pregnant? What if other people see them engaged in sexual activity? And my question was, because I was told that there had been occasions where that had happened, and I asked if the police were called, public indecency and the exposure of private parks. And I, from what I first heard, I thought that has happened in the library, but then I was told it's not quite as far as that. I want to make sure that it doesn't go that far. I think it's in our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we guard ourselves against potential damaging activities that could harm a child.
Excuse me,
Yes, go ahead.
I know it's late. We do have a policy about patron behavior, and I think it would be entirely appropriate for the committee to look at it and see if it's not, specific enough to what you're talking about. Because this is one instance, and we're spending a lot of time on it. And we should have something to look at in order to,
We have
discuss it further.
two policies. We have patron behavior, we have unintended children and vulnerable.
And so which committee should it go to?
I'd also think that we could have finance look at whether we could provide funding for an additional librarian. You have to consider also that there are books in that section. You can't restrict access to books. So certainly looking at the policies, considering whether we need additional supervision, we can go to finance and we can come back and provide an opinion.
Right, and I'm all for that. I think that's. I'm sorry, I didn't say anything.
Just holistically, I know there's been a lot of good work with space allocation too. The building is all these cool little niches.
Right.
Well, it has all these little cool niches that we've been looking at for reading spots and stuff. So I know that work is playing too.
Right. And Holly, I agree with you that should be a consideration that we bring into the equation, that we an added staff for the times in which that room is occupied. I think that's a sensible approach. So we shall refer that to this committee as well. All right. For the creation of policy and the potential hire of additional staff that would help all of this. All right. Decision. We have policy 8,000, general provisions of board membership resolution needed.
Move that we adopt changes to policy 8,000.
We have a motion, is there a second? All right. Additional discussion? All right, roll call. Holly Naylor?
Yes.
Nancy Russell?
Yes.
Becky Baisley?
Yes.
Don Smith?
Yes.
Jean Guglielski?
Yes.
Bill Boland, yes. Kim Armstrong?
Yes.
The motion so prevails, unanimous. Policy 803, trustee meeting agenda format resolution needed.
That's going back to committee.
Oh, I'm sorry, going back to committee, thank you very much. Back to committee, policy 8005, investment of library funds resolution needed. 6,000. It's getting late.
Motion. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, Holly Naylor?
Yes.
Yes.
Nancy Russell?
Yes.
Thank you. Becky, yes. Don Smith?
Yes.
Jean Guglielski? Bill Boland, yes. Kim Armstrong? The motion so prevails unanimously. Policy 607, investment charter resolution needed.
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second? Further discussion?
And rescinding.
We're rescinding, yes, we're rescinding it. Yes, that's right. We don't need it. So this is for rescinding, it should be then,
So there's language in the notes, don't like that's how you read it out, usually that's.
yeah, we need it read out. So let's backtrack and have it read out in the form of the motion. You just wrote it out.
I can read it. Someone has to move to appeal, to approve resolution 2025-08 to revise policy. I'm doing it. 2025-07 rescind policy 6007 investment charter. That's all I'm going to say.
Who'd like a motion?
Move to rescind
Becky.
6007.
607.
Motion made to rescind 607. 607.
Thank you.
Second.
And there's a second. Any further discussion? With no further discussion, Holly Naylor?
Yes.
Nancy Russell?
Yes. Yes.
Becky, yes. Don Smith?
Yes.
Janine Guglielski?
Yes.
Bill Bullen, yes. Kim Armstrong? The motion so prevails unanimously. And then policy 615, budget resolution needed.
I would move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? With no further discussion, let's take a roll call vote. Holly Naylor?
Yes.
Nancy Rosso?
Yes.
Becky Baisley?
Yes.
Don Smith?
Yes.
Janine Guglielski? Bill Bullen, yes. Kim Armstrong? Yes. Motion so prevails unanimously. Committee meetings and assignments in duty. Motion needed.
Move to accept dates as
We have a motion for the,
Second.
and a second for the dates as discussed. Any further discussion? All right, Holly Naylor,
Yes.
Nancy Russell,
Yes.
Becky Baisley,
Yes.
Don Smith,
Yes.
Janine Guglielski,
Yes.
Bill Bullen, yes. Kim Armstrong. The motion still prevails unanimously. Motion for fund balance.
I move to approve assigning $885,857 from the unassigned fund balance to the assigned capital improvement fund balance for a total assigned capital improvement fund of $2,701,341.
Second.
All right, there's a motion second. Any further discussion? Then let's take our vote. Holly Naylor,
Yes.
Nancy Russell,
Yes.
Becky Baisley, Don Smith,
Yes.
Janine Guglielski, Bill Bullen, yes. Kim Armstrong.
Yes.
Motion so prevails unanimously. They want to get home to watch a hockey game. Motion for ad hoc committee.
I move that we adopt an ad hoc committee, and it sounds like Holly Naylor was interested in being on that, Becky Baisley, and myself.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion second. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call. Holly Naylor.
Yes.
Nancy Russo.
Yes.
Becky Baisley.
Yes.
Don Smith.
Yes.
Janine Guglielski.
Yes.
Bill Bullen, yes. Kim Armstrong.
Yes.
Motion so prevails unanimously. Motion for update of the employee handbook, page 39, section 8.3, the sick time pending changes. This is under personnel. And I think we want to entertain a motion that will allow Holly, our director, to keep us, thank you, Sarah, it's getting late, Sarah, to keep us up to date and within the legal parameters of this one particular policy. Is there a motion in such fashion?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, with none being, Holly Naylor,
Yes.
Nancy Russo,
Yes.
Becky Baisley,
Yes.
Don Smith,
Yes.
Janine Guglielski, Bill Bullen, yes. Kim Armstrong.
Yes.
Motion so prevails unanimously. Okay. Information on upcoming meeting dates. Committee Relations, March the 12th, 2025, at 12 p.m. via Zoom. Finance Committee, March 18th.
No, March 10th.
Or March 10th. Okay.
Finance I have is TBA. Do we have that written down since March 10th?
I thought we just discussed that.
I know, I just don't have it written down. Okay.
March 10th.
I just want to get it right.
Yeah.
4:30. Okay, thank you.
Personnel Committee, March 6th at 6:30 in person, and the Board of Trustee meeting, March 20th at 7 p.m. Agenda item for our next meeting in terms of policy review, 8004, conduct of library board meeting for personnel, 805, board organization meeting personnel, 806, board officers personnel, 807, board committees personnel, 310, materials, selection policy, community relation and strategic planning, and 2031, children and vulnerable adults in the library community, and in strategy planning.
And then we have to add the ones we just said.
And we have to add the ones that we
What are they,
have said.
803?
So 8003.
That's it? Just the one? Okay. And then maybe a new one?
Yeah, maybe
But that's
a new one.
more of like, if it exists, okay. I'll just put new.
Yes, we're referring, labeling,
That's materials.
yeah. So items G, H, and I are all being put back to committee for the creation of language for policy for us to then consider implementation.
I move we adjourn. Second.
But we just got started.
All in favor, aye.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. This motion is, or this meeting is being called at 10:17 p.m. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Thank you for your participation. It is greatly appreciated, both in terms of attendance, participation, and comments. This is how it's supposed to be done in a democracy. Have a great evening. Drive safe going home. And